two gods pulled Japan from an endless ocean. Then one of them entered the land of the dead and returned as its queen. Before mountains had names, before a single road crossed Japan, the world was young and unfinished. Heaven floated above. Below it, the earth moved like oil upon dark water, formless and without a shore. Between them stood a bridge made not by human hands, the floating bridge of heaven. Upon that bridge stood Izanagi and Izanami, the god who invites and the goddess who invites. They had been given a task no mortal could have imagined. They were to bring shape to the drifting world beneath them. The divine pair carried a spear decorated with jewels. Izanagi lowered its blade into the ocean and stirred. Around and around he turned it, until the water grew heavy with salt. When he lifted the spear, drops fell from its point. They struck the sea, hardened, and became the first island, Onogoro. Izanagi and Izanami descended through the mist. On the new land they raised a heavenly pillar and built a hall. Yet an island alone was not a world. They circled the pillar from opposite directions, met beneath its shadow, and joined their lives together. In one early telling, their first attempt ended in sorrow. Izanami spoke before Izanagi, and the children born from their union were not as they had hoped. The gods of heaven told them to perform the rite again. This time, Izanagi spoke first. From their renewed union came islands, Awaji, Shikoku, Kyushu, and the lands that would become the Japanese archipelago. Then came gods without number. Spirits of wind and stone, rivers and trees, harbors, seas and mountains entered the world. Creation was not a single act. It was a family growing so vast that every waterfall, every ancient cedar, and every dangerous flame could possess a living presence. That idea matters. In this world, nature was not merely scenery placed around the gods. Nature was divine family. The sea that carried a fishing boat, the mountain that cast its shadow across a village, and the wind that bent the rice could all be approached with reverence. The islands were not dead ground waiting to be occupied. They were the children of a sacred marriage. For a time, Izanagi and Izanami were not only husband and wife. They were partners in the making of existence. Each birth added color and sound to the empty world. But the force that creates can also destroy. Izanami gave birth to Kagutsuchi, the god of fire. The child arrived burning with the heat he embodied. His flames wounded his mother terribly. As she weakened, still more deities sprang from her suffering, as if creation refused to stop even when its creator begged it to. At last, Izanami died. This was the first great death in the new world. Izanagi knelt beside her, unable to accept that the goddess who had formed islands with him could simply vanish. His tears became another deity, but grief offered no comfort. In rage, he drew his sword and struck down the fire god. From the blood upon the blade and the pieces that fell to earth, still more fierce gods were born. Even violence created life. But none of it returned Izanami. So Izanagi made a choice that myths across the world warn us never to make. He followed the dead. He traveled to Yomi, the shadowed land beneath the living world. It was not a kingdom of flames. It was a place of stillness, darkness, and decay, where the boundaries of life no longer held. Somewhere beyond its gate, he found Izanami. Imagine the courage, or desperation, required to cross that threshold. Izanagi was a creator entering a realm where creation had stopped. Every step carried him farther from sunlight, running water, and the living islands that still needed him. Yet grief has its own geography. When someone we love is taken, the impossible road can seem like the only road left. Izanagi called to her. He told her that the lands they had begun were not yet complete. He begged his wife to come home. From the darkness, Izanami answered. He had come too late. She had eaten the food of Yomi, binding herself to that realm. Still, his love moved her. She would ask the powers below for permission to return. But Izanagi had to promise one thing. While she was gone, he must not look at her. He waited. The silence lengthened. Darkness pressed around him. Perhaps he heard movement. Perhaps he feared that he had been abandoned. Love became worry, and worry became suspicion. At last, Izanagi broke a tooth from the comb in his hair and set it alight like a torch. The small flame pushed back the dark, and revealed what death had made of Izanami. The woman he remembered was gone. Her form belonged to Yomi now, shadowed by corruption and surrounded by powers of thunder. The sight was not a punishment placed upon her. It was the truth she had tried to spare him from seeing. Izanagi recoiled. Then he ran. Izanami saw his horror, and grief turned to fury. She had trusted him. He had looked upon her shame and fled. The spirits of Yomi pursued him through the darkness. Izanagi threw down his headdress, and from it grew grapes that slowed the hungry pursuers. He cast aside his comb, and bamboo shoots sprang from the ground. Still they came. At the border of the living world, Izanagi found 3 peaches. He hurled them behind him, and their sacred power drove back the forces of death. The peaches became protectors, but Izanami herself continued toward the gate. Izanagi reached the even pass of Yomi. With all his strength, he dragged a great boulder across the entrance. Stone divided the living from the dead. On one side stood Izanagi in the returning light. On the other stood Izanami, hidden in the land she could no longer leave. Through the rock, husband and wife spoke for the final time. Izanami vowed that, because he had shamed and abandoned her, she would take 1,000 lives from his world every day. Izanagi answered that if she did, he would cause 1,500 people to be born. Their marriage ended as a contest between death and life. From that moment, the grave would always claim its share. Yet birth would forever outrun it. The promise did not abolish suffering. It ensured that suffering would never have the final word. The numbers are important, not because the myth is keeping a literal count, but because of the balance they express. Death may be unavoidable, but it is not equal to creation. For every 1,000 taken, life answers with 500 more. Humanity does not survive by escaping mortality. It survives because each generation leaves room for another to begin. Izanagi returned from Yomi, but the darkness clung to him. To cleanse himself, he entered flowing water and washed away the pollution of the underworld. As his clothes and ornaments touched the ground, new gods appeared. Then, as he washed his face, 3 of the greatest deities in Japanese myth were born. From his left eye came Amaterasu, radiant goddess of the sun. From his right eye came Tsukuyomi, god of the moon. From his nose came Susanoo, the fierce god of storms and sea. Light, night, and tempest emerged from an act of purification. Izanagi had entered darkness hoping to recover the past. Instead, his return created the powers that would govern the future. There are different versions of this ancient story, preserved in Japan's earliest chronicles. Details shift, as they often do when a myth has traveled through centuries. Yet its heart remains the same. Some tellings linger over the islands and gods born from the pair. Others emphasize the horror of Yomi, or the ritual meaning of Izanagi's cleansing. Seen together, they do not form a neat history. They form something older and stranger, a map of how the world feels. Beauty and danger share one landscape. Purity can be lost and renewed. Love can create nations, yet still fail before fear and death. Izanagi and Izanami begin as equals, standing above an unfinished sea. Together, they make a country and fill it with sacred life. Fire brings death into their creation. Love refuses to let go. A broken promise transforms grief into anger, and a stone at the mouth of Yomi gives the world a boundary that even gods cannot cross without consequence. Izanami is more than a monster waiting below. She is a creator changed by the realm that claimed her. Izanagi is more than a hero who escaped. He is a grieving husband whose fear wounded the person he came to save. Their tragedy is powerful because neither leaves Yomi untouched. The myth also carries a quieter truth. Purification is not the erasing of loss. Izanagi cannot undo the first death or repair his marriage. He can only step into clean water, face what remains, and allow something new to be born. Each sunrise can therefore be read as the final answer to Yomi. Amaterasu crosses the sky, living light born after a journey through death. The night follows. Storms gather. People die, and people are born. The world continues, not because darkness was defeated forever, but because creation answered it with more life. Japan was born from the love of Izanagi and Izanami. Death was born from their separation. And the sun itself was born when the first grieving god tried to wash the darkness away.